The views and opinions expressed by the guests and contributors on Conklin and Company are not necessarily those of 13 ABC.
And welcome back, everyone. On Take 3 this week, we head to Washington to talk water as it pertains to the EPA and also human trafficking with our Washington Bureau. Lauren Adams in for Washington Bureau Chief Jacqueline Policastro this week. Lauren, thanks for joining us this morning. We appreciate it. Kind of pinch hitting for Jacqueline Policastro this morning. I wanted to follow up on a story you, along with Jacqueline, did this past week about the EPA, the lack of response in terms of questions about establishing a national standard for keeping our drinking water safe, the so-called microcystin level, the level of toxins in the water caused by algae blooms. How much frustration in the fact that the EPA really had no response to your questions?
Hi, Lee. Well, that's just it. We reached out to the EPA, we made phone calls, we sent emails, and every time we were told they would find somebody who would be able to talk to us on camera about this problem. Of course, you know, it affected 400,000 people in the Toledo area, couldn't drink their water. So we figured the EPA would have a response as to why, or even if not why, what they're doing now to make sure that doesn't happen again. We were promised an interview time after time, and eventually we're just told nobody in the EPA could speak on camera about this. Obviously, it was very frustrating. We want to hear from the EPA, this federal organization that should have a response to this, just simply told us there's nobody who can speak on camera at this time about the issue.
And I know that our lawmakers have said there has to be a national standard for what is safe. You did get one comment or one statement from the EPA. They're hoping to have a national standard by 2016.
2016, that's what it does say on their website. And our lawmakers, of course, are frustrated. They feel for the people of Toledo in the area who couldn't use or drink their water. It was a huge inconvenience for these people, and it was downright unsafe. So our lawmakers want to make sure that this doesn't happen again. They're looking for a federal standard, a national standard, not a worldwide standard, but a standard that affects the United States. Some lawmakers are even talking about a state-by-state standard. Obviously, it's different when you're on the Great Lakes than when you're a landlocked state. Now, our lawmakers are working together on this. It's one of the items here on Capitol Hill that we're seeing bicameral, bipartisan support, a number of pieces of legislation to make this national standard to keep people safe. And that's really just what it comes down to. All of our lawmakers, both Ohio senators, both Senator Brown and Senator Portman, are working very closely on this. Congresswoman Capter and Congressman Latta are also working on this. They say this issue knows no party, it crosses party lines, and they're all working together to try to come up with a solution to this very real problem.
Now, working together, but didn't Congressman Latta, he came out with some separate legislation this past week, right? Is it Portman, Brown, Capter on one piece and Latta on another, but they're all kind of similar?
That's exactly right. All of this has to do with the microcystin levels, what is safe for people to drink, and all of the lawmakers, again, working on those pieces of legislation. Right, Congressman Latta does have a separate piece, but it all ties into the fact that Toledo drinking water has to be safe. It has to be safe in schools, it has to be safe in homes, it has to be safe in the communities in order for people to not only trust their drinking water and their government officials, but just to stay safe.
All right, thinking about it in Washington and, of course, here very close to Lake Erie, Maumee Bay, and the watershed here. Lauren, let's move on to a series of stories that our Washington Bureau, 13 ABC's Washington Bureau, you and Jacqueline Policastro, Miriam Kahn have all been working on the sex trafficking issue. We know it's Northwest Ohio, Toledo area has been a hub or haven for this human trafficking nightmare that has really hit so many young women, girls here. Tell us about our series of reports that you plan on bringing to us this coming week. What do you have for us in the first segment, for instance?
Yeah, Lee, it's a very serious topic, obviously, and we've covered this before. We've talked about many different angles. Now, in this series that's coming up here next week, we're talking about a couple of different stories that are airing. The first one, we went undercover with the Lima Police Department as they looked for some of these young girls who have fallen victim to sex trafficking. We went to a truck stop. We looked for any of the girls who were out there doing the work. We looked for some of their johns We sat with the police officers. Jacqueline actually sat in the back of a truck looking with an officer who was undercover looking for these young girls. I sat in a car in a parking lot with one of the police officers, and we looked for these Johns, anybody who was dropping off a girl who may be a victim of sex trafficking, running plates, just really keeping an eye on these truck stops, which is one of the areas where this sex trafficking happens every night, really across the state, but specifically in Toledo, which is what's called an origin city, which means a lot of girls are recruited from the Toledo area and thrown into this very scary and very serious world of sex trafficking.
And you've been working on this series of reports, I believe for months now, have you not? The Bureau has been working on this?
We have. It's been months. And for the second part of that series that's coming up, we're talking to FBI agents. What officers and agents in the Toledo area are now realizing is that this is a family business. You hear a lot about mom and pop shops, grandparents passing it on to their kids, then on to their kids. But this is a very different and very scary kind of family business. And that is uncles might be pimps, their sons, maybe their sons' might be pimps. And that's something that these agents and these officers are tracking now very seriously. And it's giving them a very new outlook on this crime. Unfortunately, these young victims are also often related. Sisters, even a mom and a daughter, really any kind of connection that they can find within these families is helping them to track this crime and to make a dent in even solving a lot of these problems. So we talked to some FBI agents about this and just how the family business angle of it is really a new angle that's helping them kind of get to the bottom of this.
All right, we'll look forward to that series of reports. Before I let you go, Lauren, I want to salute the Bureau, you, Jacqueline, Miriam, all working for 13 ABC. It's not a service, not a franchise. You're a dedicated Bureau that work in concert with 13 ABC. And there's a local tie, I understand, that you have to Northwest Ohio. Tell us about that. Tell our Sunday morning viewers about that.
There is, for me personally, and I feel very lucky. My husband is actually from Sylvania, Ohio. My in-laws still live there, and he went to Northview High School, played soccer at Northview High School, so I'm very familiar with the Toledo area. I'm also myself a Lake Erie girl. I grew up in Erie, Pennsylvania, so not too far away. Any chance we have, obviously, we root for the Mud Hens every time we get back to Toledo. Love to go to all kinds of places there. Tony Paco's, of course, one of my favorites.
All right, good to have a local connection there, and I'm sure you hear about the Wildcats from time to time, the old alma mater from your husband, Lauren.
All the time. Go Wildcats.
All right. Thanks very much for joining us. We appreciate it. Look forward to your series later this week on the human trafficking problem here in Northwest Ohio. Thanks very much. Lauren Adams. And that will do it for this edition of Conklin and Company. We'll see you all this week on 13 ABC Action News, and next week, right here, same time, same channel, 11 a.m., right here, Conklin and Company on 13 ABC. Make it a great Sunday, everybody. We'll see you all.